The Galactic Academy of Interspecies Relations had seen many students walk through its crystalline halls. Diplomats, scholars, the children of emperors and merchant lords. But nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever seen anything quite like Mira Cole. She arrived on a Tuesday. Now, Tuesdays at the Academy were usually boring, predictable. The kind of day where you could set your chronometer by the yawn of a Velcro noble or the soft snoring of a Drethian exchange student. But this Tuesday was different. The transport shuttle touched down at precisely 9 o'clock hours. The hatch opened with a hiss of pressurized air, and a young woman stepped out. Human, 17 years old. Brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Eyes the color of storm clouds over an angry sea. She carried one bag. Just one. And she walked like someone who had learned to move quietly through places where noise meant death. Professor Krell, a tall insectoid with mandibles that clicked when he was nervous, was the first to greet her. His compound eyes scanned her documents, and that is when the clicking started. "You are from Earth?" he asked, and his voice carried that particular tone of disbelief that xenobiologists reserve for statistical impossibilities. Mira nodded once. "That is correct." "Earth," Professor Krell repeated, as if saying the word again might somehow change the reality of it. The Deathworld. Around them, other students had begun to gather. A group of Telvanni watched from the upper balconies, their luminescent skin pulsing with curiosity. A pair of Mothran diplomats whispered behind their delicate wings. Even the Karathi, those hulking warriors who claimed to fear nothing in the galaxy, kept their distance. And Mira Cole? She just stood there, patient, calm, like a predator conserving energy. "I have read about your planet," Professor Krell continued, his mandibles clicking faster now. "The atmospheric toxicity, the unstable tectonic plates, the wildlife." "The wildlife is not so bad," Mira said, and something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Once you learn which parts are poisonous." Professor Krell made a sound that, in his species, indicated profound distress. The orientation assembly took place in the grand auditorium, a vast chamber carved from living crystal that amplified sound and light in equal measure. 300 students filled the hovering seats, arranged in a careful hierarchy based on their homeworld's political standing. Mira was assigned to row 47. The back, the place reserved for species from worlds considered insignificant. She did not complain. She simply walked to her seat, settled in, and began observing her classmates with the quiet intensity of someone cataloging potential threats. And that is when she first met Vex. Vex Dorani was the son of Admiral Dorani, commander of the 3rd Helion Fleet. He had silver skin for arms and an ego approximately the size of a small moon. He also had a habit of tormenting anyone he considered beneath him, which, by his estimation, was everyone. He noticed Mira immediately. "What is that smell?" Vex announced loudly, his voice carrying across the auditorium with practiced cruelty. "Oh, wait. I know. It is the Deathworlder. I heard their planet reeks of sulfur and decay." Laughter rippled through his entourage. A Selvian noble, 2 Drethian twins, a Karathi who should have known better. Mira did not turn around. She did not flinch. She simply sat there, hands folded in her lap, watching the stage where Headmaster Soren was preparing to speak. Vex frowned. He was not accustomed to being ignored. "Hey!" he called out, louder this time. "Deathworlder, I am talking to you." Still nothing. Vex stood, his 4 arms flexed, the silver skin rippling with barely contained aggression. He began walking down the aisle toward row 47, and the students around him parted like water before a predator. "You know," Vex said, stopping beside Mira's seat, "on my world, ignoring a superior's grounds for punishment. Perhaps I should teach you some manners. Perhaps I should show you how we handle primitive species who forget their place." Mira finally looked at him, and something in her gaze made Vex take a small step back. Just one, just enough to betray the fact that, for a single heartbeat, he had felt something unfamiliar. "Fear. I am to give you a warning," Mira said quietly. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, like the moment before lightning strikes. "You seem young. sheltered. So I will assume that you do not understand what you are doing. But I need you to hear me very clearly, Vex Dorani. She leaned forward slightly. Do not mistake my silence for weakness. Do not mistake my patience for submission. And do not, under any circumstances, touch me, because where I come from, we have a saying, you only get one warning. The auditorium had gone silent. 300 students held their breath, watching this impossible confrontation between a Deathworld girl and the son of an admiral. Vex laughed. It was a brittle sound, forced, the kind of laugh someone makes when they are trying very hard to convince themselves they are not afraid. One warning, he repeated mockingly. How adorable. The primitive thinks she can threaten me. He turned to his entourage, spreading all 4 arms wide. Did you hear that? She warned me. Me! The laughter from his friends was equally forced. Vex turned back to Mira, and now there was genuine malice in his silver eyes. I am going to enjoy breaking you, Deathworlder. Every single day, I am going to make your life here a misery. And when you finally crawl back to your toxic little rock of a planet, you will remember my name. You will remember that Vex Dorani was the one who showed you exactly where humans belong in this galaxy. He reached out with one of his upper arms, clearly intending to grab her shoulder. Mira moved. It was fast. So fast that most of the students missed it entirely. One moment, Vex was reaching toward her. The next moment, he was on his knees, his arm bent at an angle that was definitely not natural, and Mira was standing over with her hand wrapped around his wrist. She had not even risen fully from her seat. That was your warning, she said softly. You will not get another. Then she released him. Vex scrambled backward, cradling his arm, his silver face flushed with pain and humiliation. His entourage stared in shock. Nobody moved to help him. You, Vex hissed through gritted teeth, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Mira sat back down. She folded her hands in her lap. She returned her attention to the stage. Perhaps, she said without looking at him, but I doubt it. Headmaster Soren chose that moment to begin his address, and the assembly proceeded as if nothing had happened. But everyone in that auditorium knew that something had changed. The Deathworld girl had arrived, and she had given her warning. Over the following weeks, Mira settled into life at the academy with the same quiet efficiency she brought to everything else. She attended her classes. She completed her assignments. She ate alone in the dining hall, always with her back to the wall and her eyes on the exits. The other students watched her constantly. They whispered about her. They studied her like she was some exotic specimen behind glass. Mira did not seem to notice. Or perhaps she simply did not care. But Vex? Vex noticed everything. His arm had healed within a day, thanks to advanced medical technology, but his pride was another matter entirely. He had been humiliated, publicly, by a human, a Deathworlder, a primitive from a planet that the rest of the galaxy considered barely civilized. He could not let that stand, so he began his campaign. At first, it was subtle, whispers, rumors, stories about the savagery of Earth and its inhabitants. He spread tales of human violence, of their wars and weapons, of their relentless, terrifying endurance. They eat the flesh of other animals, he told anyone who would listen, his voice dripping with disgust. They consume dead tissue. They are carnivores, predators. The reactions were predictable. Horror from the herbivorous species, disgust from the more refined cultures. Even the Karathi, who prided themselves on their warrior heritage, seemed disturbed. Mira said nothing. When subtlety did not work, Vex escalated. He had her assignments sabotaged. Her research data was corrupted. Her equipment malfunctioned at critical moments during practical exercises. Still, Mira said nothing. She simply adapted, overcame, succeeded despite every obstacle he placed in her path. And that made Vex furious. Why will you not react? He demanded one day, cornering her in the corridor outside the xenobiology lab. His entourage surrounded them, blocking any escape. Why do you just take it? What is wrong with you? Mira looked at him with those storm cloud eyes. I gave you a warning, she said simply. I am hoping you will heed it. Heed it? Vex laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria in it now. Heed your pathetic little threat? Do you know who I am? Do you know what my father can do to you? I can have you expelled. I can have you blacklisted from every institution in the galaxy. I can make sure you never leave your worthless planet again. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was soft, almost sad. Vex, I need you to understand something. On Earth, we have predators. Real predators. Animals that evolved over millions of years to hunt and kill. Some of them are fast. Some of them are strong. Some of them are venomous. But you know what makes humans the apex predator? She stepped closer to him, and Vex, despite himself, stepped back. Patience, Mira said. We can wait. We can endure. We can take hit after hit after hit. And then, when our enemy finally makes a mistake. She tilted her head slightly. We strike. Once. Decisively. And we do not miss. Vex swallowed hard. So here is what is going to happen, Mira continued. You are going to walk away. You are going to leave me alone. And this ends here, today, with no further consequences for either of us. Because believe me when I tell you, Vex Dorani, you do not want to see what happens when I stop waiting. For a moment, just a moment, Vex looked like he might actually listen. Then one of his entourage, the Karathi, let out a snort of contempt. She is bluffing, the warrior said. Look at her. She is half our size. What can she possibly do? And just like that, the moment was gone. Vex straightened. His silver face hardened. His injured pride won out over his survival instincts. You think you scare me, he said coldly. You are nothing. You are vermin from a garbage planet. And I am going to prove it. He turned and walked away, his entourage following. Mira watched them go. And in her storm cloud eyes, something shifted. Something changed. The warning had been given. The warning had been ignored. Now there would be a second warning. And the second warning? The second warning would end quietly. 3 weeks passed. To an outside observer, nothing seemed different. Mira attended her classes, completed her assignments, ate alone in the dining hall with her back to the wall. If she was planning something, if she was preparing some kind of response to Vex and his relentless torment, she did not indicate it. But Vex noticed something. She had started smiling. Not often, not obviously, just these small, barely perceptible curves of her lips when she thought nobody was watching, like she knew a secret, like she was counting down to something. It made him nervous, which made him angry, which made him escalate. I want her gone, he told his entourage one evening in his private quarters. I want her humiliated so completely that she has no choice but to leave his academy and never come back. I want every species in this galaxy to know what happens when a Deathworlder forgets her place. The Karathi, whose name was Thrak, cracked his massive knuckles. What did you have in mind? Vex smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The proving? A murmur of surprise ran through the group. The Selvian noble, a spindly creature named Helix, leaned forward with obvious concern. The proving is reserved for disputes between noble houses. Helix said carefully, It is traditionally a matter of honor between equals. Exactly, Vex replied. By challenging her publicly, I establish that she is worth my attention, that she has risen to the level where she can be formally destroyed. His silver eyes glittered with malice. And when I crush her in front of the entire academy, everyone will know that humans are nothing. Animals, fit only for zoos and labor camps. The proving was an ancient tradition among the spacefaring races. A formal challenge. A contest of skill, strength, and will. The rules were simple. 2 combatants entered an arena. They faced a series of trials. The one who failed first lost. Traditionally, these trials tested virtues that the galaxy valued. Intelligence, grace, technical mastery, cultural refinement. They did not typically favor Deathworlders. The challenge was issued the next morning in the grand auditorium in front of the entire student body. Vex made a spectacle, of course. He stood on the hovering platform at the center of the chamber, his 4 arms spread wide, his voice amplified by the crystal acoustics. Mira Cole of Earth, he declared, and his tone dripped with theatrical contempt. I, Vex Dorani, son of Admiral Dorani, commander of the 3rd Helion Fleet, hereby challenge you to the proving. Let the galaxy witness your inferiority. Let your humiliation serve as a lesson to all primitive species who dare to forget their station. The students erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented. A challenge to a human? A formal proving against a Deathworlder? All eyes turned to Mira. She was sitting in row 47. Same seat as always. Her hands were folded in her lap. Storm cloud eyes fixed on Vex with an utterly unreadable expression. For a long moment, she did not respond. Then, slowly, she stood. I accept. The whispers became shouts. The shouts became chaos. Headmaster Soren had to intervene, his ancient voice cutting through the noise like a blade through silk. The challenge has been issued and accepted, he announced gravely. The proving will take place in 3 days. May fortune favor the worthy. Vex was grinning as he left the auditorium. His entourage surrounded him, congratulating him, already celebrating his inevitable victory. Did you see her face? The Drethian twins were saying. She looked terrified. She should be, Vex replied smugly. She has no idea what she has agreed to. The proving is designed for civilized species, for beings of culture and sophistication, not for primitives who evolved on a planet trying to kill them. Thrak the Karathi frowned slightly. She accepted very quickly. Because she is stupid, Vex said dismissively. Because she does not understand what she is facing. Or, Thrak said slowly, because she does. Vex waved away the concern. He was too pleased with himself to entertain doubt, and that, as it turned out, was his fatal mistake. The arena was a marvel of engineering. A vast circular chamber with adaptive terrain that could simulate any environment. It was surrounded by tiered seating for thousands of spectators, and on the day of the proving, every seat was filled. Word had spread beyond the academy. Dignitaries from across the sector had traveled to witness this spectacle. The Deathworld girl versus the son of an admiral. The primitive versus the aristocrat. It was the kind of event that would be discussed for generations. Mira entered from the south gate. She wore simple clothing. No armor. No weapons. Her hair was pulled back in its usual practical ponytail, and her expression was calm. Vex entered from the north gate. He was resplendent in ceremonial combat gear, his forearms fitted with augmented gauntlets, his silver skin gleaming under the arena lights. He raised his fist to the crowd, soaking in their cheers. Headmaster Soren stood at the center of the arena, his ancient form flickering slightly, a reminder that he was attending via holographic projection. The proving consists of 5 trials, he announced. Intelligence, grace, endurance, combat, and finally resolve. Victory goes to the competitor who succeeds at more trials. In the event of a tie, the final trial determines the winner. He paused, looking between the 2 competitors. May you both bring honor to your worlds. Then he vanished, and the first trial began. The trial of intelligence was a holographic puzzle. Complex, multi-layered, the kind of problem that requires intuitive leaps and creative thinking. Vex was confident. His species was known for its mental acuity, its ability to process information faster than most other races. He dove into the puzzle with all 4 arms working simultaneously, manipulating the holographic elements with practiced efficiency. Mira approached it differently. She stood still for almost a minute, just looking, observing. Then she began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. Vex finished first. He turned to the crowd with a triumphant roar. Then the buzzer sounded for Mira. The judges conferred. The results were displayed. Vex had completed the puzzle in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Mira had completed it in 4 minutes and 9 seconds. The crowd went silent. Vex stared at the display in disbelief. 3 seconds. She had beaten him by 3 seconds. Lucky, he muttered. A fluke? But there was something in his silver eyes now. Something that had not been there before. Doubt. The trial of grace was a test of movement. A complex obstacle course that required balance, agility, and precision. The competitors had to navigate a series of platforms suspended over a void, each one smaller and more precarious than the last. This, Vex thought, was where the human would fail. Humans were clumsy, awkward, built for brute force, not elegance. He was wrong. Mira moved through the course like water flowing downhill. Every step was exact. Every motion was economical. She did not waste energy on flourishes or showmanship. She simply moved from point A to point B with the efficiency of a species that had evolved to conserve every possible calorie. Vex, for all his 4 arms and natural advantages, could not keep up. He slipped twice, recovered both times, but lost precious seconds. When the trial ended, Mira was waiting for him at the finish line. She was not even breathing hard. 2 trials to 0. The crowd was murmuring now, the tone shifting from amusement to genuine interest. The Deathworlder was winning. The primitive was beating the aristocrat. Vex could feel his father watching from the VIP section. He could feel the weight of that disapproval, that disappointment, pressing down on him like a physical force. He could not lose. He would not lose. Not to her. Endurance, he told himself. The trial of endurance. That is where I will break her. The trial of endurance was simple in concept and brutal in execution. Both competitors were subjected to increasing levels of physical stress, temperature extremes, pressure changes, sensory overload. The one who yielded first lost. Vex was certain this was his moment. His species was resilient, hardy, bred for the harsh conditions of their homeworld. But he had forgotten something. He had forgotten what it meant to come from Earth. The temperature dropped first. Cold, the kind that turned breath to ice and made joints seize up. Vex gritted his teeth and endured. Mira did not even shiver. Then the heat, searing, blistering heat that made sweat evaporate before it could form. Vex gasped and staggered. Mira stood perfectly still, her skin flushed but her expression unchanged. The pressure came next, crushing force that made lungs strain and ears pop. Then the noise, then the light, then all of it at once, layered and compounded until the arena itself seemed to scream. Vex fell to one knee. He looked up at Mira, and she was still standing, still calm, still waiting. "How?" he gasped. "How are you doing this?" And Mira, for the first time in the entire proving, spoke to him. "My planet has an atmospheric pressure that would crush your lungs," she said quietly. "It has temperature swings that would freeze you solid or boil you alive, depending on latitude and season. Its star bombards the surface with radiation. Its magnetic field is unstable. Its weather systems can level cities." She tilted her head slightly. "I spent 17 years on that planet, Vex. I did not just survive it. I thrived. This," she gestured at the arena around them, "this is nothing." Vex yielded. The crowd erupted. 3 trials to 0. The Deathworld girl was dominating the son of an admiral, and now everyone was paying attention. The 4th trial was combat. This was Vex's last chance. He knew it. Everyone knew it. If he lost this trial, the proving was over. His humiliation would be complete. The rules of the combat trial were strict. No lethal force. No permanent injury. Victory was achieved by submission or incapacitation. Vex had trained in 6 martial disciplines. He had 4 arms, each one augmented with technology that enhanced his strength and speed. He had reach, mass, and experience. Mira had none of those things. But Mira had something else. The trial began. Vex attacked immediately, all 4 arms moving in a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm his opponent. It was a strategy that had worked against every sparring partner he had ever faced. Mira was not there. She had moved, slipping to the side with that liquid grace she had demonstrated in the earlier trial. Vex's fist found empty air. He spun, attacked again. Again, she was gone. Again and again, he struck at her. And again, she simply was not there. It was like trying to hit smoke. "Fight me?" Vex screamed, frustration boiling over. "Stop running and fight." Mira stopped. She turned to face him. "Okay," she said. What happened next was very fast. Vex threw a punch with his upper right arm. Mira caught it, redirected the momentum, and used it to pull him off balance. Before he could recover, she had slipped behind him, her arm wrapped around his throat, her legs locked around his torso. He thrashed. He struggled. He brought all 4 arms to bear, trying to pry her off. She did not budge. "Yield," she said quietly. "Never," Vex snarled. Mira tightened her grip, just slightly, just enough. "Yield," she said again. "Please." And there was something in her voice, something that made Vex realize, perhaps for the first time, that she was not enjoying this, that she took no pleasure in his humiliation, that she was giving him a chance. "I yield," he whispered. She released him immediately. Vex lay on the arena floor, gasping for breath, staring up at the crystalline ceiling. The crowd was roaring, but he could not hear them. All he could hear was his own heartbeat, pounding in his ears like a funeral drum. 4 trials to 0. The proving was over. Mira had won. She walked to where he lay and extended her hand to help him up. He stared at it for a long moment. "Why?" he asked hoarsely. "Why did you not humiliate me? You could have dragged it out, made me suffer, made everyone see." Mira looked at him with those storm cloud eyes. "I told you," she said quietly. The second warning would end quietly. She pulled him to his feet. The crowd was chanting her name now. Mira, 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 the Deathworld girl. The human who had proven that she belonged, that her species was not primitive, not inferior, not unworthy. But she was not listening to them. She was looking at Vex. "Your father is watching," she said. "He will be disappointed. Angry, maybe, but he will also be proud. Because you did not quit. You fought until the end. That matters, Vex. That means something." Vex blinked. "Why do you care what my father thinks?" Mira smiled. It was small, but it was real. "Because I have a father, too," she said. "And he taught me that the measure of a person is not whether they win or lose. It is how they act when nobody is watching. It is what they do when they have power over someone else." She looked around the arena at the thousands of faces staring down at them. "You could have destroyed me," she continued. "You have the connections, the resources, the influence. You could have made my life here impossible. But instead, you challenged me publicly, openly. You gave me a chance to defend myself." She met his eyes. "That was honorable, Vex. Misguided, maybe. Arrogant, definitely. But honorable." Vex did not know what to say. He had expected hatred, contempt, revenge. He had not expected this. "What happens now?" he asked finally. Mira shrugged. Now we are classmates. We study. We learn. We graduate and go out into the galaxy and try to make something of ourselves." She paused. "Or we could be friends. That is an option, too." "Friends," Vex repeated, like he was tasting a foreign word. "Allies, at least," Mira said. "The galaxy is complicated. It helps to have people you can trust." She held out her hand again, this time not to help him up, this time as an offer. Vex looked at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and took it. They shook, and in the stands, Admiral Dorani watched his son clasp hands with a Deathworld girl, and for the first time in a very long while, he smiled. The proving of Mira Cole became legendary. It was studied in academies across the galaxy, analyzed by military strategists, debated by philosophers. How had she won so decisively? What was her secret? Some said it was training. Others said it was luck. A few, the ones who understood, said it was something else entirely. It was patience, the willingness to wait, to endure, to take hit after hit after hit, and then, when the moment was right, to strike. Once, decisively, without missing, because that is what it means to be human. That is what it means to come from a death world. And that is why Mira Cole only ever had to give one warning. Because of the second warning? The second warning always ended quietly. Subscribe and like to my channel for more sci-fi stories.